are inside for the third annual FlyCo Mini Indicon. The cake is almost gone.
What?
Get a shot of the cake. 100. So we are celebrating. Like we talked to everybody out there. We are celebrating. What would have been the 100th birthday for Jack the King Kirby. With me, of course, is Joe Field, the owner of Flying Colors Comics. Joe, how you doing?
Doing great, Henry. Great to have you here.
Yeah, great being here. Cake, like always. Everything is a party at Flying Colors. But we're also celebrating something really special this year. Like I said, what would have been Jack's 100th birthday.
The Jack Kirby Centennial.
Yeah. So,
well, when I got into comics 50 years ago, so half of Jack's time span ago, 50 years ago this summer, it was not the summer of love for me. It was the summer of comics.
Yeah.
And the first two comics that I started with were Amazing Spider-Man 51 by Stan Lee and John Romita, and Fantastic Four number 65 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And that's the issue in which Ronan the Accuser is introduced. And it's I had broken my arm the third day of the summer of 1967, and my friend down the street gave me two comic books. He gave me those two, Amazing Spider-Man 51 and FF number 65. And I read those things hundreds of times each. And Kirby was just so dynamic right from the start. You knew he was the guiding creative force of how those Marvel comics looked, and the just amazing creativity, all the characters that he came up with during that very fertile run of Fantastic Four, with the Inhumans and Galactus and the Silver Surfer and Claw and Ronan and him who turns into Warlock later on, and you just go all the way down. There were tons of concepts and characters that came out of the brilliantly fertile mind of Jack Kirby, and I couldn't help but just become a totally huge fan. And when that was coupled with the way that Stan was able to dialogue those books and put his special Stanisms into it, yeah, I mean the combination was perfect.
Yeah. Now I've spoke to all the artists that are here, and everyone had a different answer. Now you're not an artist, although we have seen some of your art at some of the events here. But to them, art. Yeah, they were influenced by Jack Kirby in some way. Now you, like I said, you're not an artist, but did Jack's art in any way influence you to open your own comic book store?
Oh, okay. Well, if it wasn't for my huge fandom for all things comics related, and especially, I mean, with Kirby at the top of that list, there probably wouldn't be a Flying Colors. A lot of what goes on in this industry is built on the creative ideas that came from him. Stan was out there as the cheerleader and the salesman, and behind the scenes, Kirby was the product guy. Yeah. He was the one who was slaving away in R&D while Stan was out front, shaking hands and kissing babies. So this is there wouldn't be necessarily a comic shop market without the creative genius of Jack Kirby.
Yeah, and I do have to say, I did speak to Jillian earlier this week.
Yeah.
She was going to come on the Geek Speak show, but she couldn't because she's starting graduate school.
Oh, very
good. Luck there.
Yeah.
But she did ask me to tell you
thank
you, because she said Joe Field has been very, very supportive since I started the Kirby for Heroes campaign, so wanted to pass that on.
Well, thank you. She never got to meet her grandfather.
Yeah.
I was only able to meet him once, and I'll tell you the story of that, because it was at a San Diego Comic-Con just a couple of years before he passed away, and I was very nervous. I saw him kind of from a distance, didn't notice that there was a crowd of people around him where he was telling war stories. I didn't notice any of that, but I walked up to him and I put my hand out and I said, "Mr. Kirby, I just want to thank you for all the great stuff that you've given me over my entire lifetime." And he looked at me and he said, "Thanks, kid. Have you ever looked down the barrel of a gun in the middle of war?" And I had never been asked a question like that before. And then I turned around and I saw that there were like 10 or 12 guys who were just standing there knowing that I had interrupted one of his war stories.
Yeah.
And that allowed him to segue right back in and finish the story. So we didn't have a long conversation, but it's
a
very
memorable
meaningful.
one.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, like he didn't tell me looking at the barrel of a gun, but that's kind of like that right over there when Stan Lee was here. That was actually one of the first times I met him. So that's what we're celebrating. And again, it's gonna be happening actually on his actual birthday.
Yes.
So what's the website? Do you know it for
Kirby4Heroes.org, and you'll find that at Kirby for Heroes on all social media, or go to the heroinitiative.org website, and they'll have all the information there. The 28th is actually Jack's birthday, and we're celebrating on the 26th because we wanted more people to be here. And actually, the whole FlyCo Mini IndieCon thing makes sense to have in conjunction with the Kirby celebration. A lot of people, remember Jack just from his Marvel stuff or just from his DC stuff, but he was a publisher. He was a self-publisher. He did independent comics later in his career. This is sort of another way to honor him by doing this event, because what we're doing is we're pushing along what he was initially involved with, and that is trying to make the comics market grow in new and creative ways.
Yeah, definitely someone huge in comics, and if you're hearing about him for the first time, definitely do some research and find out who Jack the King Kirby was. Now, we have getting up to the close to the end of the year, and you always have cool events. What's coming up as we close up the year for?
Well, we've got Halloween Comic Fest on October 28th. We have Local Comic Shop Day on November 18th. And we also have a really cool event on Saturday, November 4th, that is going to be the release party for a book, the first book done on the history of the comic shop market. It's called Comic Shop, The Retail Mavericks Who Created a New Geek Culture. And the author is flying out from Ohio to be here. We're going to have some great guests who've been involved with comics retail in Northern California for a long time, like Bud Plant and Dick Swan and Brian Hibbs and Joe Ferrara, and Mike Friedrich is my former partner at WonderCon is going to be here, not just for the comic shop book signing, but also to do a signing of his stuff, and we'll have some cool information about that coming up soon. But Mike was Marvel's first direct sales manager, so he was the first guy at Marvel who was charged with talking to comic shops and getting them to up their orders. And so he's been a creator, he's been a publisher, he's been a talent agent, he's been a sales manager for Marvel. His career is one of the most interesting careers in comics, and I'm finally happy to be able to have him come out and do an event with us. But that comic shop thing on November 4th is a Saturday evening. Is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll give you all the info as we get closer to that. So again, thanks a lot, Joe.
Thank you, Henry.